wind was blowing the way it does when the weather's about to change, and you could tell by looking up at the sky that we were gonna get some rain. And rain was something we really needed, because all of the fields were dry, and all of the people were living in fear that all of their crops might die. The storm broke loose, and it wasn't long until the creeks began to rise, and the creeks filled up the river till it almost washed over its sides. That water come roaring down the valley, I guess for 3 or 4 days, and it's a wonder that the crops and the topsoil didn't get washed away. The storm passed by and the creeks went down and the crops came to life again. And one day, Mary Higgins was berry picking with some friends. They went out to the place at the end of the valley where the bushes are thick and tall, and they found something no one had ever seen, right next to the waterfall. There's a story that a lot of the old folks knew, and they were telling it for years, about a cave that was somewhere out in that valley that had somehow disappeared. Nobody knew just where it was, or if it was really there. But whatever was hidden inside that cave had been there for 100 years. The flood had come down the face of the mountain, and it washed away some trees, and there was nothing but rocks and dirt where the wildflowers used to be. But now there was a hole in the side of that hill, standing like an open door, and those girls stepped in where no one had been for 100 years or more. They all stood real quiet, just looking around, because they all seemed to understand that they were standing on hallowed ground. And just about then the sun settled in to a certain point in the sky, and the beam that came streaming into that cave was like fire going past their eyes. That light went straight to the back of the cave where they couldn't see before, and when they got up the nerve to get up close, they saw something on the floor. And they started to brush the dust away, and then they realized they could see the bones of a man with a Bible in his hand and a note they could barely read. It said, "These are the bones of Noah Jones that you see lying here, and I don't know how long I've been dead, so don't bother shedding a tear. It's been raining now for 7 days, and the crops are all washed away, and the house is gone, and the cows in the barn, and my family disappeared today. But the Lord said that I could stay right here and spend the night in this cave, and when He wakes me up in the morning, we'll be somewhere far away." And He said my wife and all of the kids are gonna be there too, and we'll all be together again, and if he said it, then it's true. So never mind these bones you find or this old Bible in my hand, 'cause the Lord's gonna give me a new one when we get to the promised land. And I don't need this old farm no more, so you can just keep it for your own. Just take it as a little gift from the Lord and Noah Jones. People often ask me where I get the ideas for my songs. What is the inspiration? Where does it all come from? And I guess the truth of the answer to that question is that I really don't know. But there are all kinds of songs. There are love songs, there are drinking and cheating songs, there are railroad songs, there are religious songs. And I guess it just all comes down to the things that happen during the course of a day. We'll see somebody do something, or we'll hear somebody say something, or we may see a picture in a magazine, or whatever it is. But it sets us off to thinking. And I get to thinking about things, and sometimes all I get is the first couple of lines of a song. But I get them written down, and then sometimes it could be a couple of years before I can really figure out what to do with them. And then suddenly, almost overnight, it'll all come together, and the next thing I know, I have a brand new song. And I guess there's another thing there. I think that regardless of what our normal everyday state of mind seems to be, I think we all have a dark side. I think we all have a side that we really don't want other people to see and know that we see those things. But it happens. And I've got a bunch of songs like that, and I decided to use a few of them on this show. So I guess maybe we ought to call this show The Dark Side of Dave. So here we go. This old car's stalled out in the middle of the road, and I'm only a mile from town. But I can't go back, 'cause there's a sheriff with a pack of dogs wanting to hunt me down. And lying on the floor of a liquor store is a man whose luck went bad when I paid him for a bottle with a bullet from a gun, and then took all the money that he had. Now all of a sudden my life has changed. I'm out here in the freezing rain, and the whiskey that I stole is burning a hole through the middle of my brain. And the bottle's gone dry and the money's no good, 'cause there's nothing out here to buy. And the man who's lying on the floor of that store ain't the only one who's gonna die. The man who owns this car is probably missing it by now. But that's okay, he can have it back. It ain't no good to me now. 'Cause the storm's got the roads all covered with ice, and I can't make it over the hill. And if I turn around and head back to town, that old sheriff's gonna see me killed. Now all of a sudden my life has changed. I'm out here in the freezing rain, and the whiskey that I stole is burning a hole through the middle of my brain. And the bottle's gone dry and the money's no good, 'cause there's nothing out here to buy. And the man who's lying on the floor of that store ain't the only one who's gonna die. I guess that we have all known somebody in the course of our lives who got off to kind of a rough start in their lives. Not through any fault of their own, but simply because of the circumstances that they were born into and the environment that they grew up in. And that's kind of what this next song is all about. Down along the railroad track, about a mile south of town, you can see what's left of a two-room shack that's just about fallen down. I knew the man who lived there. His name was Ezra Sims. And a lot of what I know today, I know from knowing him. Ezra never had what you'd call an easy kind of life. He never had no children, and he never had a wife. And Ezra wasn't welcome in certain parts of town. His mama's hands were white as snow, but his daddy's hands were brown. But a woman gave him life and love, and a man gave him his name. And together they gave him the strength to rise above the pain and do the best he could each day and take whatever came from a world that could not see that all God's children look the same. The things I learned from Ezra aren't taught in any school, because men like him have to learn to live by a different set of rules. The road they have to travel is full of twists and bends, and the sun that shines on you and me don't always shine on them. But a woman gave him life and love, and a man gave him his name, and together they gave him the strength to rise above the pain and do the best he could each day and take whatever came from a world that could not see that all God's children look the same. Thank you. If you're ever out in Southern California, one of the things you may notice is that they don't have much in the way of forests out there. I know that when I first moved out, one of the first things that I noticed was that all of the hills that I thought would be covered with trees were actually just covered with grass. But every once in a while, you look up at the top of a hill and you'll see one big old oak tree standing up there all by itself, silhouetted against the sky. And when you see that at night, particularly if there's a bright moon, it has a real spooky kind of a look. And that spookiness is where this song came from. There's a full moon sitting in the branches of an oak tree up on a hill, and the people all say that you better stay away, 'cause that's where a man was killed. And late at night, when the moon's just right, they say that you can see the image of a man that the Ku Klux Klan left hanging from a branch of that tree. And you better not go to the top of that hill, and you better stay away from that tree, 'cause the soul of the man who died up there has never been set free. And sometimes you can hear him crying in the midnight wind, begging for the Lord to open the door and let a lost soul come in. They came to his house and dragged him out and strung him up on that limb. And then they rode away and left him there, twisting in the midnight wind. And his friends came up to cut him down by the light of the big full moon, but they got there just a little too late, or maybe just a little too soon. 'Cause a soul can't get to heaven until the body's dead, and he was all through living, but he hadn't finished dying yet. Somehow things got tangled up, and his soul just couldn't get free. Now he can't get to heaven, and he can't get to hell, 'cause he can't get away from that tree. And you better not go to the top of that hill, and you better stay away from that tree, 'cause the soul of the man who died up there has never been set free. Sometimes you can hear him crying in the midnight wind, begging for the Lord to open the door and let a lost soul come in. He's begging for the Lord to open the door and let a lost soul come in. Now this is one of those songs that comes to you real quick, says a whole lot in very few words, and then just leaves you to sit and think about it. It's a hell of a thing waking up in jail, especially on a Sunday morning. But that's the kind of thing that'll happen if you don't pay attention to the warnings. And pretty soon old Jim is gonna start paying for his fun. 'Cause just as soon as he sobers up, he's gonna find out what he's done. He was raising hell down at the club last night, and he was putting on quite a show, till he saw the sheriff coming and decided it was time to go. All four wheels were throwing gravel as he hauled out into the night, tearing up the county highway, and he never turned on his lights. They say he tried to cut the corner down by the old sawmill, but a car was coming the other way, and a couple of kids got killed. And I don't want to be there when they break the news to Jim that one of them kids belonged to the sheriff and the other one belonged to him. It's interesting to see how many different ways you can look at the same subject or object. I started this show with a song about a cave that was next to a waterfall and somebody who'd been in that cave for a long, long time. Where I lived in California, there was a mountain called Boney Mountain. And I think the reason for that is that there was so much exposed rock that it was like looking at the bones of the mountain. It was 3,000 feet high, and there's a trail that leads you all the way to the top of it. And as you start up the trail, you go past a pretty good-sized waterfall. And then a little farther up the trail, there are the burned-out remains of an old cabin, which I think might have been used by the cowboys as a line shack when that was all ranch country out there. And I got to thinking, what would we get if we moved that cabin closer to the waterfall and then put a cave behind the water and see what we get? And now I've got another song about a cave and a waterfall and a completely different idea. Johnson's mountain lie the ashes of a cabin that stood beside the roaring waterfall. And the secret that lies hidden in the cave behind the water is the price of stealing Caleb Johnson's gold. Every now and then old Caleb came down off his mountain and laid a single golden nugget down to pay for what he needed from Jesse Howard's store. Then he'd pack it up and head back out of town. Jesse started wondering where Caleb found those nuggets, but there's some things you don't ask a man to tell. Then the devil started whispering to Jesse in his dreams, and before too long they knew each other well. One day on the mountain while Jesse was out hunting, he saw Caleb go behind the waterfall. And when he came back out again, two mortal souls were doomed, 'cause Jesse knew where Caleb got his gold. The people of the mountain never knew what really happened the night they saw the flames light up the sky. And when they found old Caleb in the ashes of his cabin, they just figured that he died there in the fire. But everybody wonders why Jesse disappeared, why he never came to open up the store. They don't know about the hole inside the cave behind the water, where the devil came to claim poor Jesse's soul. And up on Johnson's mountain lie the ashes of a cabin that stood beside the roaring waterfall. And the secret that lies hidden in the cave behind the water is the price of stealing Caleb Johnson's gold.